Suppose a question comes on reservations in mains. What are the key points you should know so that you can write answer? Fine. So first of all, what is reservation? Fine. So reservation is also called as quota. Reservation is also called as quota. It means that certain quota can be fixed for a particular category of persons. It can be in job, it can be in educational institutions, and it can be in parliament, it can be anywhere. So quota means a percentage of seats is fixed for a particular category, and it cannot be given to anyone because this quota is given on the special grounds, and that is why Supreme Court has allowed that the backlog seats will be considered as the backlog. Fine. Now, the reservation policy in India is a very debatable issue. There are people who are vehemently against the reservation. There are people who want reservation for as a symbol of social justice. So, as far as reservation is concerned, it is highly controversial issue. Fine. And it is so controversial that at times we will not be able to even openly debate on reservation. So there is one scholar, Professor Ramchandra Guha, who rightly said that reservations in India, create more heat than light. Reservations in India create more heat than light. Now, what does that mean? It means that reservation is such a politicized issue that it is not even possible to have a very clear or a very logical debate, even a free and frank debate is also not possible on the issue of reservation, because it is such a politicized issue and it is such a emotionally charged issue. Now, the problem is that if there can't be any debate, then there is no chance that we can logically evaluate, we can critically evaluate the reservation policy, and as a result it may happen that those who should be getting the reservation, they may not be getting the benefits. Those who are taking the benefits, they are not entitled to take the benefits, or maybe the overall outcome of the reservation is not the way we intended it. So, for any sound policy, the first condition is it should be a matter of public debate, public reasoning. There has to be a free and frank debate to understand the pros and the cons. But the political environment in India, unfortunately, does not allow the logical evaluation or the critical and the penetrating evaluation of reservation. Anyway, I will make some effort that you get some clarity and you can talk on reservation with the help of some basic concepts, some basic theory, or the way you talk about reservation should not be like the man on the street talking about reservation. So, whatever arguments in favor or against, whatever you say, it should be sensible, it should be an argument of an educated person. Okay. So, first of all, reservations, as I said, in India is something so complicated. There is lot of litigation, there is lot of politics, and often we never reach to the core issue. Now, from the perspective of the political theory, if we analyze reservation, then reservation comes under the category of affirmative action. So, reservation is a type of affirmative action. Okay. Now, affirmative action is associated with welfare state, and you know that India is the first welfare state constitutionally. Introducing the idea of welfare state in the constitution itself, Indian constitution is the very first example. Both part 3 and part 4, even part 3 establishes India as a welfare state. For example, article 16 clause 5 or article 15 clause 4 directs state and enables state to take special provisions, special measures in favor of the weaker sections of the society. So, hopefully my definition of welfare state is also clear to you. So, welfare state is a state that is expected to take welfare measures in favor of the weaker sections. So, the idea of welfare state in the modern times is relatively new. It came into existence during the Great Depression and interwar period. Though if you look into the Indian texts, India always had the welfare state, and if you look into Manu and Kautilya, they have always mentioned that it is Raj Dharma to look after the orphans, to look after the destitutes, and it is Raj Dharma to help the people to realize their Purusharthas. But since the dominating approach to look at the things is from the Western perspective, we can say that the welfare state came after the economic depression and the economic crisis, and it was realized that survival of the fittest, that is the laissez-faire approach, will not work, and state needs to take special measures in favor of the weaker section as a part of level playing field in the society. So welfare state takes affirmative action. The other term for affirmative action policies is positive discrimination in favor of the weaker sections of the society. Now, if we have to understand the scheme of reservations in India, now before that we have to understand that affirmative action or positive discrimination, these are linked to the welfare state, and the objective of welfare state is to help the weaker sections to establish a level playing field. In political theory, there are not number of scholars whose theories on justice support the theory of welfare state and the policies of affirmative action. For example, you will study in your ethics Rawls' theory of justice, Dawkins' theory of justice, Amartya Sen's theory of justice. All talk about welfare state in one or the other form. Like Rawls says that policy is just which brings maximum advantage to the least advantaged section. Dawkins says that policy should not be such that undermines human dignity. State should reflect equal concern for all, and Amartya Sen says that everyone should have capacity to have equalize or equal amount of happiness. And Amartya Sen especially emphasize on state making investments in the capacity building tasks. So, if there is a lot of literature available in philosophy, in ethics, in political science to understand the logic behind affirmative action. So, now let us understand the type of affirmative action in India. Now, one thing I want to tell you is that affirmative action policies include range of policies. And we can say that reservation is not the only measure available, nor the most important measure available to achieve the target of helping the weaker section of the society. Now, if we see reservations in India, so reservations in India are given to the members of SC and ST community in the parliament and state legislatures. Then the reservation is given to the members of SC, ST and OBCs in jobs and high end in the field of education, including higher education. Now, certain state governments have also introduced reservations for the locals in private sector jobs. As we have seen in case of Haryana, then in India we also see the reservation of some jobs for the locals under state or UT, as we have seen under Article 16 clause 5. So we have variety of reservations available and at different stages. Now, you should also understand the concept of vertical reservation as well as the concept of horizontal reservations. Vertical reservation means, let us say, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras and untouchables. This is a hierarchical structure of the Hindu society, and where reservation, Shudras can be considered as the members of other backward classes. These are the backward classes, these are other backward classes. So when this reservation is given to those who are lower in the hierarchy of the caste system, that is called vertical reservation. Now, along with vertical reservation, there can be a reservation within reservation or interlocking concept of reservation. For example, there can be reservations for the women. Fine. So maybe if 50% seats are reserved for women, then out of the total seats reserved for the members of the Dalit community, the 50% will also go to the women of the Dalit community. So there is also interlocking reservation. There can be reservation on certain grounds like physical disability, children of freedom fighters, members of armed forces, etc. Reservation has also been introduced for SC/ST community and women in panchayats, and reservations for OBCs have been left voluntarily in as far as panchayats is concerned, and the government has also introduced 10% reservation for economically weaker sections of the society. So in many ways, in many forms, in many dimensions, reservation exists. As far as the members of SC/ST community is concerned, there is a reservation not only for the at the entry level, but also at the promotion level and with the consequential seniority. And time and again we see that the demand for reservation keeps on rising. Now, along with that, there is also an interesting concept introduced by India's Supreme Court, that is creamy layer. Means in a backward sections of the this was initially given for OBCs in Indira Sahani case, but in Jarnail Singh case Supreme Court has prescribed even creamy layer for the members of SC and ST community, and however in BK Pavitra case again they said that creamy layer will not apply in case of promotion with consequential seniority. So lot of technicalities, and every time and again we see more and more communities wanting to be recognized in the category of reservations or the backward sections. Now whatever is happening is given rise to lot many debates, and to understand the constitutional aspect of India's reservation policy, obviously the main guideline is Indira Sahani judgment, which has laid down that the reservations cannot go beyond 50%, which has struck down the reservation on economic ground, which has considered caste as the main indicator of backwardness. Fine. Though it has also provided many other things, it held that there will be no reservation in promotion, but government has brought an amendment, and then there were provisions that the backlog vacancies will be treated as a part of the new vacancies. For that also the government has brought reservations. So now interlocking and horizontal reservation is not a major thing. What you have to understand is the reservations for SC and ST community and the reservation for the backward sections of the society. Both of these things have its own history, both of these reservations have its own politics, and the entire issue of reservation has its own philosophy, has its own ethics. Fine. So let us understand the reservation debate in India little bit historically. So if we go into the history of reservations, so first of all certain princely states and the princes like Shahuji Maharaj, they have started giving reservations and special provisions for the members of the backward community, and it is the result of these policies we have persons like Jyotiba Phule, Savitri Phule and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Now later on we see the British state or the state of Madras introduced reservations in the education and jobs for the members of SC and ST community. Though British government always projected it as a welfare measure, but the national sociologists like Andhra Bete never trusted the British government, and they always believed that inherent in the idea of giving reservation has been the British policy of divide and rule. Now, reservation in the Parliament and state legislature has its root in the Ramsay MacDonald Award of 1932. We all are aware of this particular fact that the colonial state never accepted the existence of India as a nation. They always held that India has different communities and these communities have nothing in common. Now, Britishers, as a part of following the policy of divide and rule, first of all in 1909 in the Morley-Minto reforms introduced separate communal electorate and made Muslims as a separate entity than the Hindus, and also showing that the Hindus cannot represent or secure the interests of the Muslims. Now, the Government of India Act 1919 extended reservation for other communities. Also, Ramsay MacDonald Award aimed to reservation or aimed to introduce the separate communal electorate even for Dalits, and Ambedkar was a major supporter of the separate communal electorate. Gandhi understood the sinister design of the British government, and they felt that this is an attempt by the British government to further weaken Indian national movement, to reduce even the Congress and the Hindus into a minority. So Gandhi had kept the fast against separate electorate, and as a result of the Pune Pact, the compromise between Gandhi and Ambedkar, comes the concept of reservation. So reservation in Parliament and legislature is a result of Gandhi and Ambedkar pact known as Pune Pact. So on one hand, reservation was a compromise on the part of Gandhi. It was also a compromise on the part of Ambedkar, because Ambedkar left his demand for separate electorate and Gandhi accommodated this view that the untouchables have been historically disadvantaged. Now, at the time of independence, because we have to consolidate and emerge ourselves as a nation where there is a liberty of thought expression, where everybody can live a life of dignity, the Government of India, in order to give confidence to the members of the SC and ST community who have faced 2000 and more years of discrimination, as a confidence building measure, it has introduced reservations in Parliament, in state legislatures, as well as in public sector employment. Fine. So reservation has been accepted. If we look from the perspective of the political scientist, one of the most important scholar who has done the most scholarly work both theoretically as well as empirically in the field of reservation is Mark Galanter. And Mark Galanter, in his article Competing inequalities talk about reservations, and he describes the reservation policy in India as a part of compensatory justice. So it is a compensation which the members of the upper castes have to pay. Why? Because of the continuation of the caste system. And not only in India, caste system is continuing. Various reports show that in India even untouchability is practiced, and surprisingly untouchability is practiced in India not just among the Hindus but even in the religions or the persons from the religion like Islam as well as Sikhism, which does not have the provision of untouchability. So it is a price which the members of the upper caste will have to pay to continue with this most inhuman and something which is very much against the idea of human rights and human dignity. So everything comes at a price, and I can describe reservation is a compensation which the upper caste has to pay to address the grievances of the members of the weaker sections like SC and ST community. It is something which they have to, like, it is a sort of, it is not just a social, it is also a sort of the grievance redressal mechanism for them. Now we have to understand that the principles on which the reservations for the members of scheduled caste community operate and the principles of reservation for which the members of OBC operate, they are very different from each other and they cannot be compared with each other. For example, if I talk about the members of SC and ST community, and if I talk about the reservations given to them, it flows on the different logic. Now what is the logic? The logic is the members of SC community specifically, but in India SC and ST is quite an overlapping term. So in short you can say that the reservations for SC and ST community is not on the economic ground. Hence, if government or if judiciary proposes the reservation or it says that there should be a creamy layer in case of members of SC and ST community, it is a wrong idea because it is a compensation not because of economic backwardness. It is a compensation because of following the policies similar like apartheid, segregation of the Bahujan Samaj from the mainstream of the Indian society. So you can say that the members of the upper caste, they had reservation for 2000 years and more. Now it is a time to pay back. It is about compensation, and as the one of the greatest philosopher of 20th century, John Rawls, says that justice is fairness. Now whether it is fair to give reservation or not, how we are going to decide. So is the reservation policy just or not? So what Rawls says justice is fairness. And a policy is right and wrong. Ultimately, your soul can determine whether a particular policy is right or a particular policy is wrong, because Rawls also said that justice is a characteristic of a soul. Now, justice as fairness demands that you have to be fair. Now, when you can be fair, when you can be just, so John Rawls gives the concept of veil of ignorance, and he will also give the concept of original position. Both these concepts you will study in ethics. So what does that mean? If we want to see a particular policy is just and unjust, we have to forget who we are. Because if I am a member of a upper caste and I will look at the policy of reservation, no light will be generated, only heat will be generated. Similarly, if I am a member of a lower caste and I will look at the reservation policy, maybe again only heat is generated and light is not generated. So we can evaluate the policies only when we are in the original position, means we forget that we belong to which caste, which community, which religion, and understand that policy purely on the basis of logic, putting yourself in the shoes. The members of upper caste put themselves in the shoes of the members of the weaker sections of the society, and it is their time to recognize that it is somebody's due, or it is a compensation that has to be paid for continuation of the historical injustice. Now, when judiciary or any other commission, etc., or the intellectuals talk about there can be reservation or there can be creamy layer criteria as far as the members of SC and ST community is concerned, it is wrong, because creamy layer criteria is based on economic criteria. So there is one debate in that entire reservation policy, and the debate is creamy layer criteria has to be introduced for the members of SC and ST community. Fine. So let us focus more on SC community, Supreme Court's judgment, Jarnail Singh case related to it. But we have to, and what is the logic given? The logic is given that there have been certain sections within the members of SC and ST community which have appropriated the benefits and as a result a class within class has emerged, and those who are at the lowest rung, they continue to suffer. So the members of the scheduled caste community who have already got the benefits of the reservation should voluntarily surrender it in favor of the members of the weaker section or those who are in the lowest level to take the benefit. It is a good idea, but according to me, it should be done as on a voluntary basis, and state should not come up with any idea of introducing the creamy layer for the members of SC and ST community, because creamy layer is based on income criteria, and when you give reservation to the members of SC/ST community, it is not on the basis of income criteria, it is because of the practice of untouchability and the social stigma and the segregation, and it is a compensation that the members of the upper caste community will have to pay. So if the members of SC/ST community on their own think it is a very good idea, but you cannot have a state policy of introducing creamy layer as far as the reservations for SC and ST community is concerned, because it is a matter of compensation. Now, when the question arises that there is a class within class, means there is a elite class that has emerged among the members of scheduled caste community, and there are the people who are left out. Fine. So now the benefit of reservation should reach to them. That is why you should introduce creamy layer. But you have to understand that for those who are left out, for that this is not a solution, because they are getting reservation not for economic ground. Reservation is not given on an economic ground to the members of SC and ST community, but voluntarily they can do so. However, the government, in order to bring these left out in a scenario where they can also take the advantage of the reservation policies, it is essential that government take special steps. Government should not think that it has done enough by introducing the reservation policy, because reservation policy alone will not be helpful. You have to go for taking very strong affirmative actions. For example, universalization of education is important, addressing poverty is important, land reforms is important, right to health is important. So we have to see that if you want this section should also gain the benefit, this is not going to solve the problem until and unless the government takes the measures for a more comprehensive measure, so that this section of the society can also take the benefits. Now, as far as the OBC reservations is concerned, it is a very, very politicized issue, and there is complete lack of clarity. So OBC's reservation is given on the ground of backwardness, and primarily it is economic, and because it is written social and educational backward classes in Article 15 Clause 4. So it is given primarily on the social and economic ground as well as on the educational grounds. And it is to be noted that, as the sociologists suggest, that the OBCs were earlier Shudras. So Shudras never suffered the type of discrimination which the members of SC and ST community suffered. So Hindu society or a Vedic society has 4 Varnas: Brahman, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. Shudras were not outside. Shudras were not outcast, Shudras were the part of Hindu society, they were not untouchables, but because they were also doing such jobs, they were like carpenter and others, then that they were economically weak and educationally weak. Now, the type of discrimination and disadvantages they feel is different. Still, we do not have any clear-cut criteria to determine backwardness. Now, the basic problem in the OBC reservation is that OBC reservation has created a race to bottom. And as a result, that those who were earlier upper castes, they also want to be recognized as the backward castes. Now, the problematic angle is that there are certain dominant castes. Dominant caste is a term given by M.S. Srinivasan, India's most famous sociologist, where he says that in India the upper caste term is a misnomer, and actually we should look into the term dominant caste. Fine. So, the dominant caste means the castes which are dominating in economic sphere, the castes which are dominating in political sphere and social sphere. The criteria of the dominant caste is those who are landholders, those who are numerically strong in a particular region, and hence they become politically strong. For example, if we talk about Jats in Haryana, if we talk about Marathas in Maharashtra, if we talk about Yadavas in UP, so they represent the dominant caste. It's not that the OBC reservation has not benefit to non-dominant caste, but what creates the problem is when those who are economically dominant, those who are politically dominant, they also aim to they also aim to maximize the benefits in the state employment, and that creates a very big problems. That is why in the past judiciary has rejected Haryana government's policy to grant reservation to the Jats, or Maharashtra government's policy to grant reservations to Maharashtras or to the Marathas. Fine. And the problem is that if the dominant caste will be getting the reservation, the entire idea will get defeated, because the reservation is meant as a catalyst for the vulnerable sections who require some external catalyst and who on their own will not be able to come at par or to join the mainstream. So, reservation is an affirmative action policy. Reservation is not a preferential policy. What is a preferential policy? The policies which favor the dominant section, like government of Sri Lanka's policy favor to Sinhalese will be a preferential policy. So, if reservations are given to the dominant caste, it will not be any more affirmative action policy, it will become a preferential policy. Now, the problem is that there is a cap of 27% reservation for OBCs, because as per Indra Sahani judgment, the total reservation cannot go beyond 50%. Now, as a result, OBC's reservation is limited to 27%, though various studies show that they constitute around 40 to 50%, even 37% of the Indian population. When the policies are adopted where new castes are introduced within the bracket of OBC reservation, then the very purpose is defeated, because then the reserved post becomes as good as the open post, and reservation is just for the namesake. Even the governments who are giving reservations to, let us say, Jat community or Maratha community, they also know that these reservations cannot pass the test of basic structure, but primarily for the mobilization of voters, such type of policies do come up. Now we have to understand that reservation policy cannot be considered as a compensation to the failure of economic policies. One of the logic that is given behind the reservation policy for Jats and for Marathas and other dominant caste is the land holding is getting reduced day by day, agriculture is no more rewarding. But the solution is like you are understanding or you are giving, or the remedy is wrong, conceptually wrong and theoretically wrong. So reservation cannot be an employment guarantee scheme. Reservation cannot be a compensation to the failure of government to provide sustainable employment, quality employment, or failure of unemployment, because different issues have to be differentiated and different policies. It is the easiest way that you promise reservation, and when you promise reservation as a easy and short term solution to a bigger questions of Indian economy, like increasing unemployment or failure of land reforms or declining of agriculture, somewhere those who should or the right policies do not emerge, and ultimately the people are not benefited by these policies. This approach, it only results into the election of the politicians and the legal battles, long drawn battles, and ultimately it proves of nothing. So what is important is those who have undoubtedly suffered because of the wrong economic policies, because there is an unemployment, because agriculture is no more viable in India, they should focus more on understanding the issues deeply, how to rebuild India's economy in terms of job creation, in terms of skill development, and we have to come out of this colonial mentality, because civil services in this sense, like in India, when you attach the entire status etc. with the civil services, it is nothing but a colonial mentality. You have to change. We are living, like we are thinking of meeting the challenges of 21st century with the institutions of the 19th and 20th century. That is not possible. So holistic debate is needed, and we have to understand that reservation alone cannot be the only method of this affirmative action policy. If we see the approach of judiciary, so approach of judiciary from time and again is not so much in favor of reservation. You can say one of the reason can be the judiciary is not that representative, or judges can have their valid reasons, but there are certain points which judiciary has mentioned which is also important. For example, judiciary in the Nalsa case and judiciary in the cases in the Jat reservation case. In the Nalsa case, judiciary has directed that the members of the transgender community should also be given reservation within the section of OBC community. In Jat reservation case, judiciary said look for the new groups which deserve the reservation, and there is a need to go beyond the criteria of caste. In Ashok Kumar Thakur case, judiciary has held that, rightly held that reservation policies are enabling policies and they should end someday. Even in Maratha reservation case, judiciary held that for how long, for how many generations the reservation will continue, but at the same time it is also suggested that a bigger question that the civil society of India has to answer, that for how many more generations the caste based discrimination will continue. In the end, I can say that reservation is needed, but this particular policy needs to be debated with completely in a very logical manner. Everybody has to look the reservation policy from the position of from the original position, going behind the veil of ignorance and understanding the principle of justice. We have to take up the policy which provides the maximum advantage to the least advantaged section of the society, and ultimately we have to come to terms that the dignity of any person is inviolable. I hope you have understood some aspects of India's reservation debate. Thank you.